And nobody understood why. He just said he was born on 25, and everybody attributed it to the old pagan holidays. But the fact is, he probably was doing what most Catholics have done throughout history and said that the day you're born is the day that you're conceived, even though it was 1,000 years ago and he's sitting in some monastery. But he knew, somehow he knew that was correct. You know, now people, like I say, they get really down on the Catholic Church, and we should be, for their bad doctrine nowadays. But not everything, you know, what's that? That's the fallacy of when you assign something bad to something just because you don't like it. There's a term for it. Anyway, yeah, we do that with the Catholic Church all the time, but not everything that comes out of the Catholic Church is bad. And the terminology is wrong. He was not born on 25 December, except in the instance of the flesh, Word became flesh and dwelled among us. Yes, he was conceived, or he was, yeah.
Who knows if they had the word conceived?
Yeah, absolutely.
The word might have been the same thing.
Absolutely, just like the Koreans, and that's why I brought up that example. They say, I'm 22 years old. Well, guess what? They're 21 anyway, or whatever, because of the dating they're giving you. Anyway, so we're going to go back to the Genesis 1 now, and somebody go ahead and read from wherever we were. The sixth day, where is it? Okay, 24. Somebody go ahead and read 24.
And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kind, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind.
Okay, once again, everything is producing according to its kind. Do dogs ever have cats? No, never. Does a horse ever have a bunny rabbit? No, everything produces according to its kind. Now we
Doesn't this discount evolution then?
Well, absolutely. You know, this does. I mean, if you believe this, then the pattern is set. And no, horses don't have bunny rabbits or whatever I just said. Everything produces after its own kind. Okay? And that's what's going on here. So when I said that Jesus is fully God and fully man, the pattern is set in Genesis 1. We don't need to go any farther to know that he is the God-man, eternally God and eternally man. The two, never, remember we said this in a class before, there's no intermingling of them and there's no separation of them. He is the God-man. Okay, he's fully God and fully man. Can God cry? No. Can man cry? Yes. Can God learn? No. Can man learn? Yes. And you go through the Bible, Jesus can't learn anything, and yet as man, he grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men. So when you ask a question about Jesus, ask it twice, and you'll always come up with the right answer. Or answer it twice. Anyway, here we go. So what were we, 25? Or 26? Yeah, 25. Go ahead.
Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.
Okay, we have complete dominion over everything on earth. God put that under us. And for us to elevate the creation, cows and whales and everything above us, is not in the proper order. That does not mean that we are to abuse those things, right? I mean, we shouldn't be going out and purposely trying to make the buffaloes extinct like Wild Bill Hickok did, Buffalo Bill, right? He went and shot all the buffaloes and they were almost completely gone. Well, they were there for a reason. And they're hardy. They fed the Indians. I mean, they serve, I understand they're pretty tasty too. I've never eaten a buffalo, but I understand they make great buffalo meat. Buffalo burgers. Anyway, but we are to use but not abuse the creation. Now, I used to not eat meat. I just gave it up because I watched something on the History Channel one time and it was so disgusting. I just said, I'm never eating meat again. So for 5 years, I really didn't. But eventually somebody found out I was a vegetarian, and they invited me to a vegetarian meeting. And the first thing they did was pray for all the animals that were being killed by man. And I thought, yeah, I was like, you know, that's not why I'm not eating meat. It was because of the way they process this stuff. Now I don't care. You put anything down my stomach. I don't care. But I got over that. But actually, the way I became an unvegetarian is I went to Israel and they served lamb. And I love lamb. Grandma used to cook it for us. And I said, I'm done. Remember that? That's when I started eating meat again. And I don't even eat vegetables or bread anymore. It's all just meat. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, everything produces after its own kind. And I wonder who that was. Did anybody see that guy go by? I should have asked. I've never seen him here before. Some guy in a nice suit and whatever, but he seemed like he was going somewhere, so he just walked by and smiled. But anyway, So it made in the image, fish of the sea, the birds of the air. So we have dominion over everything. All right. And then in verse 27, we come up with the big Rosh Hashanah, the first of Tishri creation. Somebody read 27.
So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
Okay. So here we have on the sixth day, he created male and female. Right? We know that the Genesis 2 account happened in one day because of that verse there. He created them male and female, and at the end of the sixth day it says he saw everything that he made and it was very good. Tov me'od. That means that's the only day that it says very good. Every other day is good. Okay, but we know that male and female were created on the sixth day. We know that Eve was created in the Genesis 2 account when things weren't good. So that, to me, it settles the issue of short-term creation. Anyway, going back to verse 26 real quickly, it says, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Now, that is a confusing verse. Some people will say, unlike the Genesis 1:1, where the word is Elohim, and it's a majestic noun, which really doesn't prove the Trinity at all. This one, people will say that this can allude to, not specifically a Trinity, but more than one member in the Godhead, okay? I don't know how the Jews deal with this, and I haven't read it, but it does say us. Let us make man in our image, okay? And so I would generally, if a Jewish person had a problem with the concept of the Trinity, I would take them there and said, have you ever read this? And let them think about it. Because there's no doubt that it says us and our in the Hebrew. Okay? Anyway, I don't know what it proves. I'm not a specialist enough, and I've not studied this verse enough to know, but I would take a Jewish person there and I would show them that and say, hey, consider this. And I'd also take them to where it says in Jeremiah, the days are coming when I will establish a new covenant with the house of Israel. There are certain things that Jewish people are just kind of steered away from. Isaiah 52:13 through 53:12, the suffering servant passage is a great place to take them. It's talking about a man. It's singular. It's not, speaking of the nation of Israel, even though that's what the rabbis will tell them, So there are places in the Bible we can take Jewish people to evangelize them, and hopefully they will read it and the Spirit will prompt their spirit. But anyway, there you go. Let us make man in our image, okay? So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. That brings us to, we got 5 more minutes. That brings us to the question. I think this will be the last verse we do. So somebody remember, please, that we did 27. Do we bear the image of God to this day? Okay?
Sure.
Okay. You say sure. Some people would say no. If you're a hyper-Calvinist, you say the image of God in man is erased. Okay? They use the term erased. We have, because of the spiritual death and because of all the other things, the image of God is erased. Now, my college taught me that strong Calvinism and hyper-Calvinism both hold to that. I don't know if that's correct or not, but if that's true, that strong Calvinism says that the image of God in man is erased, then strong Calvinism is wrong as well as hyper-Calvinism. Anyway, the image of God was effaced in man. That means it was marred. Okay? It was marred. We no longer have all of the qualities that we were originally given. Okay? How do we know from the Bible that the image of God was not erased in man? Give me a verse that tells us that the image of God was not erased in man. James? Anybody? Book of James?
I'll say, he talks about the reflection, or I can't even remember.
Go to the verse in James where he's speaking of our tongue, and with it we do what?
We bless
and curse.
Okay, and then what does he say? James, it says here, we'll go there real quickly. I'll let you, it says probably James 3 or James 5. I'm not sure which, but it might not be too. Let's see here. Oh yeah, the tongue is a fire, James 3. And then it goes down here and it says, verse 9. Somebody read 3:9.
With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in God's likeness.
Oh, okay. So we are in God's likeness even at the time of James. Has anything changed since the time of James that would tell us that we are not in God's image? No. So we are in God's image even to this day. But people will say at the fall, it was erased in us. Okay, that's not correct. What's another verse that tells us that it was not erased. Go back to Genesis again. I said this one a week or two ago. Genesis 3. All right. He curses them, and then after cursing them, he says, they use the plural again. The man has what? Now
Now become like us.
man has now become like us, knowing good and evil. We became more like God, at least in one way, after the fall. Okay? So don't let anybody tell you that the image of God is erased in man. It is not. It is effaced, but in one way it is actually increased. Before the fall, we had no knowledge of good and evil. Now, if I'm going down the road in Albuquerque, Georgia, which I'm sure is not a place, but anyway, I'm going down the road there, and I'm going over the speed limit, and I didn't see the speed limit sign. Am I still guilty?
Yeah.
Innocence before the law is no excuse. Or not innocence, what is it? Ignorance, thank you. Innocence is an excuse. Ignorance before the law is no excuse. He was told not to do something, and whether he knew what the ramifications were or not, he's not excused. Okay, and we're going to get into this. We'll repeat all of this again next week, but I want you to understand that the image of God is maintained in us, all right, that we have not had it erased, and we actually became more like God in one way, and that none of this surprised the Lord. We go back to Ephesians 2:7. It says, in the ages to come, and he talks about the things that we will always be astonished at. Well, you can't be astonished if you don't know. You can't thank God for his grace and his mercy unless you were given grace and mercy, right? Adam could not appreciate any of those things unless the fall happened. So the fall, despite being a bad thing, produces good results. And God, throughout the Bible, uses evil to produce a good result. And give me one more example, and we got 30 seconds more. Give me one more example of good coming from evil. As a matter of fact, the guy actually said,
Well, all I know is, we're not good from evil, but he says in Romans, I think it's 8:28, he brings everything for good that for those who love him and are called according to his purpose.
that's right, the called. That's absolutely right. The people that are in God's covenant community, all things work together for good. Okay? Joseph said what to his brothers when he revealed himself to them? Yeah, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And this is repeated throughout the Bible. Maybe not explicitly, but implicitly. It is implied throughout the Bible that God uses evil things to accomplish his purpose. He is not the author of evil in any way, shape, or form. We can never ascribe evil to God. But we can know that God uses our evil actions for a good outcome. All right? How he does it, beyond me. But he does do it, and in the end, he is glorified through them. The fact that I've done evil in my life, and now I'm teaching the Bible, God is using that for good. All right? But back when I was doing that evil, who would have thought? Right? Okay, so there you go. That's enough for today.